Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Meditations and Musings podcast. So I'm sorry for the sound today, but I'm actually in my office and I was doing a little rearranging, so the sound might be a little bit echoey, so I do apologize, but we've got a great episode today. It's one that I've had this conversation with lots of people and it's really funny where it ends up. So I wanted to explore today. And as you've seen by the title, I'm asking the question, does buying crystals make you spiritual? So I'm definitely being a little naughty with the title because I want you to think about it. Does one thing make you spiritual? And we're really going to have a bigger conversation today. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce my sponsor of the Meditations and Musings podcast. Now, I haven't had any sponsors before, and I'm still hesitating taking on new sponsors, meaning sponsors that are other products or programs or entities, unless they are super aligned. And I know this one is aligned because it's my signature program, the 66 Sacred Rituals to Activate Daily Magic and Abundance. Yep, that is our ongoing premium sponsor of all that it takes to create this podcast, the recording of it, the editing of it, the publishing of it. And if you have not done a podcast before, it doesn't just happen on its own. There's people involved. So I have this wonderful editor who creates this for me. And so we have a sponsor now. I'm really, really excited. And I'm going to share with you right now how to check this out. And I have a special gift just for my podcast listeners. And it is a $10 off coupon off of the 66 Sacred Rituals program. And all you have to do to access it is go to elenalipson.com/gift. And you'll find some instructions on the page as well. But just if you're curious and you've got your pen handy, your coupon code, your exclusive coupon code for being a listener of the Meditations and Musings podcast is the word podcast. That's it. Nothing complicated. So all you have to do again is go to elenalipson.com/gift and use the coupon code podcast. Sorry, I got stopped up there for a second. Okay, so I'm going to remind you again at the end of this episode, but I'm really excited because now I'm actually funneling a sponsor into supporting this program, and it's my program, which is definitely a little bit, well, it's my program, so I get to choose. So anyhow, okay, let's move on. Okay, so does buying crystals make you spiritual? So let's talk about it. So first of all, there's a couple of things to talk about. One is the word spiritual in general. And the way it's used these days is usually in comparison to, are you spiritual or are you religious? And a lot of people describe themselves as spiritual versus religious. And that is a whole other podcast. We're not going to get into the religious aspect of it today. So I will define for you what spirituality means for me, and I want you to think about what it means for you. Do you consider yourself a spiritual person? What does it mean to you to be spiritual? So I'm going to share my definition. I would love to hear your definition in the comments of this podcast. So this is not a one-way conversation, though it feels like it at the moment when you're pressing play, but I really am curious. I have an idea of my listeners' ideologies and priorities and core values because I tend to attract people who do have at least an interest in spirituality. And since I talk about daily rituals and practices, those are part of my spiritual practices. So it tends to attract people who also have at least curiosity about spirituality. So for me, I was raised in a Jewish household, and we did celebrate the big Jewish holidays like Hanukkah and Passover and things like that. But I wouldn't say that I was very religious growing up. I definitely had an identity, but for some reason, the Jewish identity is more of a culture than it is a religion. And this is, again, a deeper conversation, but it's more about the traditions, the food, the gatherings, the honoring, and there's a lot of allowance for questioning in the Jewish tradition. So I was always able to question, and as I got older, I was able to explore different traditions and rituals, everything from Buddhism to, I had really good friends growing up who were Catholic and Christian, and so I was able to explore and go to church and light candles and go to Zen monasteries and read books, and there was a lot of openness in my house. So today, I consider myself still of the Jewish faith, and definitely culturally, we're going to celebrate Hanukkah and have the latkes and everything else. But again, for me, it's a lot of traditional patterns around food and celebrations versus having any specific ideology on seeing the world. So I would consider myself more of a humanist, meaning that I respect you and your beliefs, and I have no need to change your beliefs in order to have you feel the way I do. And I expect the same respect and allowance from the people that I spend my time with. So in our home, we definitely honor and celebrate major Jewish holidays, but we also have friends who celebrate many other holidays. So we love to learn about them. And now that we're homeschooling our son, we definitely explore, like right now we're studying West Africa and their traditions and their lifestyle and food and culture. And we luckily have a good friend who spent some time in Africa and just recently spent a month there. So we get to hear about her travels and the food that she ate and the customs and how different it was there. So we're very open to exploring the world and all that it has to offer. So there's that. In terms of my spiritual beliefs, I, again, believe that if you're human, you have a soul, and that you are connected to something bigger than just your daily needs, meaning food, water, shelter, all those are the basic foundational needs. But I have found for myself, right? I'm not going to tell you what you need, but I have found for myself that when I am feeling connected to something bigger than myself, that I feel more hopeful, I feel more valued, I feel more supported and guided. And then the mystery of life, the tragedies of life, the things that happen that we cannot control, they have some sense of, you know what, I don't know, and I'm kind of okay with that. Even, when I've experienced tragedy in my own life, losing people near and dear to me, I have definitely let myself feel the trauma of it and the grief of it and the loss of it. And then I sort of go into this place of, I don't know why this happened. I'm not going to spend more time than I need to. Of course, the grief kind of comes in cycles over the years, and I don't believe it ever fully goes away. You just gain a different perspective of looking at it. So even when my dad passed away unexpectedly when I was in my early 20s, I definitely was brought to my knees in a way that was very devastating for me. And luckily, I allowed myself to go into full, grieving mode for a long time. Even, there'd be some days where I found relief and joy and connection, and then there'd be a wave of grief. And I believe that is how we cycle through things if we fully let ourselves do that. So even in those moments, I was able to sort of be present, be still, and connect to something bigger, thinking, you know what, I have no idea why this happened. And I can see how sucky it is and how terrible it is for everyone involved. And there's so much loss here. And I don't know. And I just don't know why. And I'm not going to spend my time seeing darkness everywhere and be negative because of this thing that happened. Now, I know there's a lot of shitty things that happen in the world. And therefore, my belief is that you need even more reason to be in some sort of connection with a spiritual practice. And when I am, and I have been really actively for the last, at least 20 years in some sort of spiritual inquiry, sacred questioning, reading, exploring, having conversations with people who think differently from me. And it's been so beautiful. And there's been times in my life where I'm very, very connected to my spiritual daily practice. And there's other times where I feel disconnected. And I found that the difference is my daily rituals help me stay connected to something bigger. And even in those days where I feel like I'm just going through the motions, I'm still going through those motions, because you need to get through that stuck energy sometimes when it feels very heavy, when it feels very hopeless. For me, those daily rituals, and I'll talk about some of them, help me to stay connected to myself so that I can get through that cycle of maybe shadow time or dark time or feeling like, what does it all matter anyway? Because you will have those days. I have those days. You have those days. I've been coaching women for over 17 years now. I've had dear friends for over, for decades at a time. So I've seen people go through their cycles, and as well as myself, and now my son and my husband. And so I have found that having daily rituals has been a key fundamental practice to stay connected to my spirituality, which to me means staying connected to something bigger than myself, which includes the beauty and magic of nature, the beauty and magic of movement in my body, of lighting candles, of burning sage, and yes, crystals. So here, let's get into this conversation. Does buying crystals make you spiritual? And the answer is, I have no idea. So a little bit of a teaser title there for you, but I want you to think for yourself. I'm not here to be your guru or your expert. I'm here to get you to just think and just to be curious and to share my stories so that you get inspired to really consider your own as well. And if you get inspired by something I share with you, then amazing. That's wonderful. I would love to hear about it. But again, I'm not here to tell you whether buying crystals makes you spiritual or not. I can share with you what my journey has been and to share some ways you can use or misuse crystals on this journey that you might or might not call spiritual. So for me, I've always just been curious in crystals. I actually used to wear a rose crystal when I was about 12 years old, and I knew it was all about love and connection to yourself and to your heart. And so I've always had books about crystals, about different magical traditions from around the world, about tribal traditions, about ancient cultures. It's just something I've always been fascinated with. So for me, I've been learning about crystals for a long time, and every once in a while I'll find a new book or a new way to relate to them, but I've never been one to be super rigid about a particular crystal and its meaning and how to use it. I approach my crystal rituals pretty much the way I approach everything else in life, which is my way. If I can find a way to engage with a crystal, to appreciate it, to use it in a way that feels good to me, then I'll be more likely to be connected to it. I have this understanding that crystals come from the earth, and I am part of the earth too. So if I look at it and it makes me feel something, and it has some beautiful reflection or color that I appreciate, then that's one that I'll probably engage with and use in different ways. I don't just go buy something because someone tells me I should and then try to force this particular crystal into acting a certain way. I don't believe in that. I think for me, I can look around my room right now and I have a beautiful celestite crystal, which helps you to essentially be a conduit or a channel of communication for the angelic realm, right? So now I might or might not agree with that based on how I use the crystal. I tend to have the crystal with me when I'm doing something like speaking or recording a podcast, and I find that it actually does make me feel like I'm connected to something a bit bigger than myself. And sometimes I get these ideas where I'm like, where did that come from? So yes, I'm a creative being and I have inspiration. And sometimes as I'm speaking, ideas come to me. So I love the crystal, the celestite crystal, for that purpose. Then I have an amethyst. I also have other crystals that I charge during the moon. So I have particular rituals around the way I use crystals. Mostly it's about me taking time to connect. So when I'm purchasing a new crystal, I will go to the crystal store. We have this beautiful shop in town called Wise Awakenings, and I go in there, and all I let myself do is like ask myself, what do I need for this? Or if I'm buying a gift for someone, I try to think about them and how they make me feel. And then I walk around and I just look at something. I wait for something to catch my attention, and then I'll pick it up before I even look at the words, because they have those little words of the title of the name of the crystal and then what the crystal's attributes or characteristics are. And I don't look at that. I actually just feel it. I hold it in my hand. I close my eyes. Sometimes I hold it next to my heart, and just to kind of see how I feel. And then if I like it, then I'll look at the meaning. And more than likely, I will have connected with something that I'm already looking for. So for me, there's a lot of intuition that goes into choosing a crystal and then how I'm going to use it. I have certain crystals that I use for my morning meditation, and I love using the round crystals. I have a selenite crystal. I have my pyrite is not a crystal, but I do have one for abundance meditation. I have a Merlin stone, which is beautiful black heavy crystal, which has so much energy in it that when I hold it, I literally have to kind of take a deep breath and be in my body. So I do have my own personal connections in the way I use them, but again, I use them as part of my spiritual practice. What I've seen, which has sort of prompted me to do this particular musings episode, is that people use crystals as kind of a spiritual badge of honor almost, like, hey, I've got this crystal, and they might not even know what it does. And so what I'm inviting you to do is, if you're drawn to crystals, even if it's just to put a picture on social media, just take a moment and really connect with it and see, even ask yourself why. So I want to share with you 10 reasons why crystals, or how crystals can be used or misused in the path of spirituality. If it's not being used for connection to something, then I feel like it could just be a decoration, which, hey, I have no problem if you want to use a gorgeous amethyst in your, on your desk and it just makes you happy. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is that I invite you to go deeper with it. If you are drawn to it, even if it's just for the beauty way of it, then invite yourself to wonder why you've been drawn to a particular crystal. So reason number one is that some people think it's just trendy to be, to be someone who has a crystal. And it is trendy because I can tell, even when I post images with crystals, I get a lot more likes on social media, which makes me laugh because on the one hand, it's like, okay, great, you like the picture, but I invite you to wonder why. What is drawing you to it? What is it about this particular crystal that makes you feel something? And what is it that you feel, right? So that's number one. Number two is thinking you should have a crystal is seriously unnecessary. Like, you don't have to be someone who goes out and buys crystals to be spiritual. In fact, that's what I'm saying. Like, when I first started sharing with you that it's really about having a ritual in my life that connects me to the crystal, which actually makes the practice itself, it gives it much more depth. So if you are first exploring how to buy a new crystal or be with a crystal, I would say a great place to start is to meditate with it, or just to carry it in your pocket and just to kind of see how it feels. Or if you're looking for a specific attribute like enhancing prosperity or deepening your meditation practice, or just finding love, like that's something that you can go into a crystal store and just ask a question and find if you can be drawn to one intuitively. So again, number three is, what's your why? What's your intention for working with crystals? If it is to deepen your spiritual practice, then have an intentionality behind it. And instead of going out and buying a bunch of expensive crystals because you think you should, really, I would say get really simple with it. Choose one and see if you can spend some time with it. Keep it in your pocket, put it by your bedside. Some crystals, in my opinion, are actually very powerful to have by your bedside, so you might not want to put it right near your head. But if it's one that helps with relaxation, then that's something you can definitely put near your head or even under your pillow. And actually, I have a little eye cover with a little pocket between the eyes, like kind of where your third eye chakra would be. And I can put a little crystal in there that helps with sleep and active dreaming. So that's another way to do it. So number four is, again, have rituals with crystals that help you ground and co-create a spiritual practice. So you've heard me talk about my meditation practice. So when I meditate, I will actually choose a crystal, and I have a few on my meditation pillow that I sage every morning before I meditate. And I actually hold one in my left hand, sometimes in my right hand, sometimes both. And I just notice. All I'm doing is I'm not expecting anything. I'm not turning on any sort of switch. I'm just noticing if meditating with that particular crystal is helping me to stay present, helping me to ground, helping me to be in my body, because for me, that's the intentionality of meditation. Number 5, crystals are an ancient technology, so you can just treat it like something to have a skill set around. I would say if you are interested in learning more about crystals and adding crystals to your spiritual practice or rituals, then one of the things you can do is actually just get a book from the library or go to Barnes & Noble and explore a book and just notice, start reading it. Are you interested in it? Is it something that you want to learn more about? Because it's nothing new. A lot of people are getting into it right now, kind of like a trend, but it's an ancient technology. Crystals are part of the makeup of this earth, of our dirt. They come from the earth. There's caves and mines and places where these crystals come from. And so I want to invite you to be really conscious about it, because not just to go out and get a bunch of crystals because a bunch of people are right now, to really understand that when you're pulling a crystal from the earth, is it being sourced ethically? Where are you buying it from? Is it someone who's taken the time to really care for the way it's being brought out of the earth, right? So that's a whole other consideration. So if you are interested in looking at it, there's some beautiful resources. You can Google ethically sourced crystals. So again, you're bringing your understanding of that, our resources in the earth, to this beautiful ritual of engaging with crystals. And again, they've been around for a long time, and we're in a phase right now where so many people are interested in crystals, which means that if, just imagine if there's a crystal shop in every city, in every major city, and people are wanting more and more and more, that we're going to have an issue with the resourcing of them or the sourcing of them. So I just invite you to consider ethically sourced crystals, and I might find a link to put in the show notes so you can look at them, but you could definitely just Google it yourself. Number 6, just play with them. Get curious. Don't feel like you have to do it a certain way. If something I'm sharing seems to resonate with you and it piques your curiosity, just try to, again, for me, a basic way is just to carry one in my pocket sometimes, or in my purse, or to have one near my journaling sometimes, so I can sort of sit, close my eyes, tap into this crystal. And it's really interesting because sometimes you'll surprise yourself with how this particular crystal is making you feel. And so sometimes it's really important to have a practice around just connecting with it. And just getting playful. If you were a kid and someone put a bunch of beautiful stones in front of you, you would know what to do. You would touch it. You would notice its texture. You would maybe smell it. You would just engage with it. So don't feel like there is this one right or wrong way to be with your crystal. Get playful with it. Have that childlike curiosity. Number 7 is, again, get a book. Try a grid, or simply start meditating with one or two and see how it feels. And this goes back to just having that curiosity. And when I say a crystal grid, if you don't know what a crystal grid is, it's a way of setting up crystals to activate certain energies in the world. And sometimes people use things like sacred geometry, meaning like a flower of life might be one that you're familiar with, or a Metatron's cube, where it's like a tetrahedron. I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, but it could just be a simple square or a simple circle, or put it in a heart shape. You don't have to get super technical with it. But if you are, say you're spring cleaning, or you're setting an intention to create something, and you want to get a couple of crystals or stones or even shells, or flowers, you don't have to have 20 beautiful crystals. You can have one really beautiful crystal that you connect with, and the rest of it could just be elements from nature, like shells or stones or leaves. Again, this is your way to connect with a crystal. Don't feel like you have to follow some trend, or you saw some picture on Instagram and you have to do it that way. Wonder for yourself how playful and creative you can get with it, okay? Number 8, you decide what makes you spiritual. So buying crystals can or won't, or maybe it does make you spiritual. I don't know. You get to decide, but you get to decide what living in a spiritual way, having a spiritual practice is for you. Again, for me, I have found that my daily rituals connect me with that part of myself that has a depth of connection to the earth, to spirituality, to my connection with my spirit, with spirit's guidance, right? So my daily rituals are what connect me to spirituality. At the very basic level, it's just being alive, having movement, having breath. For me, it makes me a spiritual person. Of course, my life is grounded in some religious tradition, but for me, living spiritually means having rituals on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that connect me to something bigger. And if you think about it, when I teach my rituals workshops, if you really think about it, something as simple as celebrating a birthday or a wedding or even a death, those are rituals that we have in this society that we don't think of as rituals. We think of them as celebrations. But that's what rituals are. Rituals are actually celebrations. They're celebrations of a moment. They're celebrations of a transition. They're celebrations of a season, right? So there's so many beautiful rituals that we have that we don't think about it. Even Christmas can be a ritual in a family. It's those things that we do on a regular basis that connect us to something bigger. And crystals can be one of those ways of connecting, right? But it doesn't have to be, so you get to choose. Number 9, lighten up. Just lighten up around crystals. People get so, I get asked these questions like, oh my gosh, I have this thing I need to do and I need this specific crystal. Tell me which one I should get. I'm like, you know what? Just lighten up, walk into a crystal shop and just explore. I don't need to tell you, I can give you a suggestion, but my way doesn't mean it's going to be 100% right for you. There's some crystals that I've seen people use or some rituals that I've seen people do that maybe connect with me. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm willing to give them a try, but ultimately I'm the one who gets to decide. So again, like some people are super obsessed with, oh my gosh, I have to do this full moon ritual or else that thing that I want won't happen. And you know what? That is the number one way to stress yourself out. If it doesn't resonate with you, if you're not drawn to it, if you're not trying to create that rhythm in your life, then don't worry about it. There's so many other ways that you can connect and find your own rituals. That was one of my major motivations in creating the 66 Sacred Rituals course was I give you a lot of different ideas to try. And when I teach the course, if you decide to take it, you'll see I give you so many different ways, small ways, tiny little things to do on a daily basis, and you get to choose which ones feel really good to you. If it's just one of them, that's great. But I do have people who keep on taking it over and over again, and of course you get lifetime access when you do the course. You basically learn, if you are someone who hasn't practiced rituals, or you have, or you're curious about getting into more rituals, the 66 Sacred Rituals is actually a phenomenal place to start because I give you several different ways, mind, body, and soul, to connect to something deeper within yourself and in sort of the spiritual realm that we live in. And there's not one right way. In fact, I invite you to take the rituals that I teach you in that course and to make them your own. So again, it's your way, it's your life, it's your path. And of course, number 10 is try my 66 Sacred Rituals. So if you're just curious right now about all the stuff I'm talking about, and you're like, I really want to deepen my spiritual practice, or I want to create a spiritual practice, try my 66 Sacred Rituals and see if one of those are something that resonates with you. I created that journey probably about 2 years ago now, 1.5 years ago now. And it's been one of the most powerful things I've created and I've gotten the most feedback on. It's really become my signature offering. So again, those are the 10 reasons why crystals can be used or misused and how you can really make it your own practice. So even though my title was a little cheeky, does buying crystals make you spiritual? I am not answering that question for you. So this is a question for you to answer on your own. All I can do is give you some ideas to think about, to give you some stories from my own personal life, which is what I hope I do here on the Meditations and Musings podcast. So, does buying crystals make you spiritual? I don't know. That's for you to decide. All I can do is share what I know and then invite you to share with me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything I talked about today. Did something really land for you? Did something resonate with you? I'd love to know. Please leave a comment in the review section of the iTunes podcast. So all you have to do is scroll down to the bottom of where you see the podcast and it says leave a review, press that and tell me, what do you think about spirituality? Do you have a spiritual practice? Do you have rituals that you do every day? I'd love, love, love to know. And again, I want to remind you again that this podcast, the Meditations and Musings podcast, is brought to you by my signature program, the 66 Sacred Rituals to Activate Daily Magic and Abundance. And as a listener of this podcast, you receive a $10 off coupon to go ahead and try the 66 Sacred Rituals for yourself. All you have to do is go to elenalipson.com/gift. And when you scroll down, you'll see a couple different places you can click. When you go to that place where you check out, don't forget to type in the coupon code podcast to receive $10 off of the program. That's all I got for you today. I hope you have a phenomenal day. I can't wait to hear your feedback. And if you do try the 66 Sacred Rituals course, oh my gosh, I will totally be excited to hear what you think and to just give you blessings on your journey. Alrighty, have a phenomenal day. This is Elena Lipson, your host of the Meditations and Musings podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next time, same place. Remember, new episodes come out every Tuesday, so I will see you for the next one. Have a phenomenal day. Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new divine self-care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.